Digital ads are blanketing Las Vegas and South Carolina, slamming Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, you might think they're coming from Republicans, but they're actually orchestrated by a group run by one of our next guests. Jonathan Kott is the executive director of the Big Tent Project, which aims to boost moderate Democrats. Kayleigh McEnany is Trump 2020 National Press Secretary, and we're also joined by Beverly Hallberg, president of District Media Group. Jonathan, I'll start with you. The Big Tent, your group, the Big Tent Project, is spending about $1 million in South Carolina and Nevada, mostly on aims and attacks against Bernie Sanders. You know, I'm old enough to remember when $1 million sure sounded like a lot when it comes to political advertising, but when you compare that to what Mike Bloomberg is spending, how confident are you that these kinds of ads are really going to be able to make a dent?
I think what we're hoping for is just to show Democratic voters what Bernie Sanders' views actually are. I think it's astounding that he's gotten this far in the race and we haven't really looked at what his radical views and policy positions are. I mean, Senator Warren put out a plan for how she would pay for her version of health care, and the media tore it apart. People looked at it inside and out. Bernie Sanders gets up there and says, Medicare for all and union members, you won't lose your health care.
But are you at all worried that you could be hurting the eventual nominee?
I think the eventual nominee isn't close to being determined. I think we've had 2% of the country vote. We have a lot of races ahead of us. We have 2 races in the next 10 days. I think that voters need to know what his positions will do to their daily lives. And I think that our goal is to just make sure that people have the facts in front of them. It's not for anything else. It's just to let them know that, look, he supports a Medicare for all plan. He has no way to pay for it. Union workers in Nevada are very upset that they're going to lose the health care that they negotiated very hardly for. So
Kayleigh, I have to imagine the Trump campaign is pretty happy about ads like this being put out by Democrats.
Well, look, I certainly agree that Bernie is a crazy, radical, psychotic socialist who believes the American dream is more apt to be realized in Venezuela. But what I also see at play is here you have the Democrat establishment trying to rob the election from Bernie. You know, there's that article out that Bloomberg's trying to rack up the superdelegates. He was robbed of his victory night out in Iowa. This is the Dem establishment attacking Bernie. They will never let him win. They don't care what their voters say. This is all about power. That is what the Democrat Party is about. So 2 things at play. He's a crazy socialist, but this is also the establishment robbing it.
Just to be clear, I am in no way part of any Democratic establishment. I've been a staffer on the Hill working 20 hours a day for the last 10 years. So this is a group of people who just think
that's the establishment.
That's not the establishment. Those are hardworking staffers who believe that facts need to get out there.
Beverly, where do you stand on this?
Well, this is just showing how much of a fracture you see within the Democrat Party right now, because they're trying to find a candidate with one goal, which is to defeat Donald Trump, and they're finding no candidates that are able to do that. So you do see this division. I understand why this ad is going against Bernie Sanders. I'm glad that his views are getting out there, because frankly, these are not the right views for people in America. It's not what people want. But at the same time, who is going to be that replacement? Is Michael Bloomberg a millionaire, something that people in the Democrat Party typically demonize, somebody who's wealthy? Is that going to be their candidate? So I think tomorrow in Nevada, it's going to be very interesting to see if Biden is able to make any traction, because Bloomberg may be the moderate that they're hoping for, and I don't see how Bloomberg is going to beat Trump.
Well, things have certainly gotten ugly in the Democratic race over the last few days. Let's talk about one of the latest accusations flying between the Bloomberg campaign and the Bernie Sanders campaign. The Bloomberg campaign accusing Sanders supporters of vandalizing one of their campaign offices in Knoxville, Tennessee. But, Jonathan, there really hasn't been a ton of hard evidence that the Bernie bros were behind it. Have you seen any evidence?
No, I don't think there's any evidence. I think this could very easily be, one person who decided to spray paint an office building. I think our political rhetoric needs to be toned down, and I hope everybody, including Kayleigh, joins me in encouraging the president to tone down his rhetoric. Today, he went on the stage and lied to everybody in the audience about his own intelligence agency's assessments. And let's not forget that some of Trump's supporters have stormed into a pizza restaurant in D.C. with an AR-15, mailed pipe bombs to Democrats. Like, that's the rhetoric that I'm more concerned about, and I think we should be focused on.
Kayleigh, jump in here.
Yeah, that's completely absurd. First, I would note the only person who lied about the intelligence community was the New York Times. That's pretty much widely acknowledged by Jake Tapper, even. It's not our supporters who are engaging in all kinds of violence. It's our supporters who are recipients of it. And what you're seeing, the reason you're hearing this kind of rhetoric from Democrats, they are running scared. The fact that 32% of people who showed up in Las Vegas today at our rally did not vote in 2016. The fact that 27% were Latino or Black Americans. We have a big loving Trump coalition. It's scaring the heck out of Democrats, so they're left with these really bad talking points.
Except today, President Trump did get on stage and say the Democrats were lying about Russian interference. It was his own appointed intelligence
You've lied
officers.
about Russian collusion from the beginning. The Mueller report exonerated the president. Nice try. Go back to Russia.
The Mueller report
and let me just jump in
indicted
here.
multiple people.
Beverly, I've got about a minute left.
Here's the problem as a whole.
Word.
Anyone who commits any type of violence or criminal activity, that individual or those individuals should be held responsible. I don't think on either side, whether it's Bernie Sanders, whether it's Donald Trump, none of their words, if they're not asking people to incite violence, they should not be held responsible for that. We do have free speech in this country, and frankly, I think there's a double standard in people calling out Donald Trump for his rhetoric and claiming that that leads to violence, while not looking at their own party on the Democratic side and not thinking that those words do. In general, let people have free speech, and if people are saying things that are inciting violence, that's when you prosecute that.
That's a nice note to leave it on.